Beastie Ball is a team builder, turn-based sports RPG that just released into early access on Wednesday. Now, I could go into detail about all of the mechanics of this game to describe what it is, but in the end, the simplest way to describe this game is that Beastie Ball is pretty much Pokémon, but volleyball. That tells you all you need to know. Seriously, you build a team of wild animals that like to play volleyball, you go on an adventure to beat a bunch of gym leaders around the world, all while battling random people and wild teams along the way. Now, I could say that it's great and that's the end of the video, but that isn't all that the game has to offer. This is basically the elevator pitch to get you in the door, and yeah, it's an interesting take. Pretty much everyone I mention this game to is interested when I say, yeah, it's like Pokemon, but with volleyball. But Beastie Ball is quick to establish its own identity through the tone of the story, the lovely handcrafted visuals, and fantastic music. So before I get more in depth on this review, I do have to disclose that I was given a review copy of this game. Even though I believe this does not affect my opinions on the game, I always believe it's important to disclose when I've paid for a game myself or when I was given a copy of this game. One more thing to mention is that this game is in early access, which means the game is just unfinished. Bugs are to be expected, game features may not be complete, and anything seen could be subject to change in the future. If I find that this game requires a follow-up video in the future, then I will probably do that. Also, I'm sorry if you're sick of hearing me say the early access spiel. I realized as I was writing this review that this is the third early access game in a row that I have reviewed. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure that the next game I do is at least a fully released title. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into Beastie Ball. Now, I initially found out about this game during the 2023 Summer Games Fest. It was shown during Day of the Devs, and I even talked about it in a video covering the event. I wasn't really impressed by what I saw back then. I said, and I quote, "Interesting take. I like the idea of the buddy relationship system between your team. I'm just hoping that there's a little bit more to the game that wasn't shown here." Imagine my surprise when the game didn't really have that much more to offer in terms of systems, but I ended up liking it anyway. I guess it does go to show that you can't really judge a book by its cover. I mean, I'm probably going to continue doing that in my Summer Games Fest recaps because it's fun, but you know, I'm always happy to be proven wrong when a game just turns out to be good rather than bad. One of the first things I was kind of intrigued by Beastie Ball when I launched it up was actually the ability to change the color of the menus with more options than just like a light mode and a dark mode. It's an option that actually don't really get to see much in video games. Other than Grounded, I don't recall any other games that actually let you do that. I know that there are others, and if you know of the other games that do this, then let me know. I'm drawing a blank right now. Next up, we have our character creator, which is pretty serviceable, although a bit better than I expected with how like the art style of this game looks. The game does feature clothing stores around the game, so all the clothing options that you get in the initial creator here is not all that there is. And the game also lets you change anything and everything about your character whenever you feel like it. I don't feel like I need to mention that the clothing is bought with in-game money and not via microtransactions, but honestly, you never know these days when you boot up a game. Oh, why is gaming so grim now? The game starts off with you and your childhood best friend playing a friendly game of Beastie Ball. We choose one of our 3 starter beasts and are given a second one by the game to play the tutorial. The way Beastie Ball works is that there are 2 teams. Your objective is to land the ball on the opponent's side of the net. Each team gets 2 beasties in play with the option of having up to 3 extra to swap on your bench. The objective is to score the ball on the opponent's side. You can do this by either attacking an undefended row or by going through one of the opponent's beasties by taking out their health or stamina. The game is turn-based, but in each battle there are 2 phases, an attack phase and defense phase. Obviously, when you're attacking, you have possession of the ball, and defending when the enemy has possession. When attacking, you can perform up to 3 actions, one of which must be an attack, but the other 2 actions can be used for things like buffing teammates or debuffing enemies. When it comes time to attack, you get to choose which lane or row to send the ball down. A beastie is only usually capable of doing either one or the other, but say I have one that can attack horizontally and there are no opponent beasts in either of the front 2 squares of the court. That means it is undefended, and unless the opponent moves one of their beasts to the front row during their defense phase, then that is going to be a free point for me. So the obvious play is to always have one beastie in the front row and one in the back, thus giving full coverage. During the defense phase, you are given one action, and with that action, you have the chance to either move your beast or tag them out for one of your beasts on the bench, or you can use a defensive move that may mitigate some of the damage taken. Now, adding the fact that some beasties can stun, others can displace, some defensive actions let beasts tank damage for each other, and what we get is a pretty surprisingly robust RPG battle system, and a fun one at that. I feel like a turn-based RPG's biggest enemy is tedium, and Beastie Ball does a very good job of keeping that at bay. Part of how it does that is due to the way the battle system works. It feels quite fresh, and the other part is due to the beasts themselves. Beasts have different personality traits, which means when they put onto a team and play with each other, they may develop a friendship or become besties or rivals, and in one case, two of my beasts fell in love. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm their trainer. I don't know if I should be stopping this or what, but now I'm kind of feel like I'm emotionally blackmailed into keeping both of them on the team, because if I end up benching one of them permanently, I'll feel guilty because they seem so happy. Rivalries are the relationships that I reckon you really need to keep an eye on though. Like my two starter beasts ended up becoming rivals, and one time when they lost a point in a match, they decided to get pissy with each other, and that's when they started to start sabotaging each other's moves during the game and almost threw the match completely. There's a bit of a wrench thrown into one of the matches that I wasn't expecting, but I actually really like these systems. They're a lot of fun. When the beasties develop relationships, they can learn each other's skills and also form strong combo moves during games based on what kind of relationship they have. I initially thought the skill learning was completely free reign, but then I eventually discovered it wasn't. Pretty much any information that you need to know can be found in the game's Pokédex or Beastpedia or whatever they call it. It shows which skills are learnable via leveling up your beast or which ones they can learn from teammates, and the list is quite broad, although your beast can only actually have 3 active skills during battle. While you are outside of battle though, you have free will to change around any of the previously learned skills, and this is where the game kind of offers like an abundance of freedom with when it comes to customizing how your beasties will play, which I really like. It's hard to say how much of that affects the balance of the game overall. I think the 3 skill limit is what stops balance from getting way too out of hand. Beast strength is determined by their stats and what types of power they are strong versus what they are weakened. There are 3 different power types split into offensive and defensive, so being strong in a power type doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be weak different power type. But what I found as I played through the game is that the actual XP level of Beast seems to be the most dominant stat and probably the most important to start out with. Having underleveled beasts is not ideal, and I find it's pretty easy to fall into that old Pokemon trap of having one like giga over-leveled character and then just neglecting the rest of your team. The game will attempt to slow you down by giving your beasts injuries if you use them too many times in a row, but it didn't stop me from doing it anyway. I'm pretty bad when it comes to managing that kind of stuff. Next, I would like to talk about the story and the writing. The story of Beastie Ball is pretty simple. Like, you and your childhood best friend are trying to save a nature reserve from being destroyed, where a bunch of endangered wild beasties live. The only way to do this is to become a Beastie Ball trainer and become the best like no one ever was. Get enough cred so the Beastie League will hold off on building a stadium at the reserve and destroying the habitat. The tone of the story is pretty light-hearted. The world building is done fairly decently, but I found myself disliking a bit of the character writing and dialogue, and that is no more apparent than with our childhood best friend character that I flat out did not like. They are an epitome of just kind of in your face and just a lot. They are a lot. On the flip side, I definitely think that the gym trainers and their over-the-top characteristics were more fun. Kind of fit better because they have a bit more like thematically going on, and they're meant to be like this big boss and big over-the-top thing. Although I tend to find that they also become a bit more hit and miss when it comes to spending more time with them via the social sim stuff. In Beastie Ball, when you fight a tough, wild team of beasties, you fill up a gauge called a social battery, and when you fill up a level, it gives you the opportunity to hang out with friends, and hanging out with friends lets you get to know them better, as well as unlock some rewards such as favors, which allows the characters you spend time with to teach your beast certain skills. Again, I think this is where the dialogue starts to fall apart for me. It feels very hit or miss, and it is mostly due to the dialogue writing, and it just isn't resonating with me. Some of it's a bit over the top, some of it's a bit more generic. The main story stuff is really good, and I think that's where the writing shines the most, but it is with the more of the side stuff that I feel like it kind of falls apart, and I feel like the writing might just need another pass. Next up is the music, which I found myself enjoying. The compositions really complement the light-hearted tone of the game, especially the battle themes, which are all very light-hearted and upbeat. The overworld music is very atmospheric, and the boss themes are all very over the top and help lend to making the boss battles feel more grandiose. It does everything right, and it has a very similar kind of feeling as the Undertale soundtrack, just a little bit less chiptune-y. When it comes to how the game looks, I think it looks great. All the characters and beasts in this game are in 2D, and while the world that they inhabit is 3D, which kind of makes me feel like I'm playing one of the Paper Mario games. But the game also presents itself with a very stylistic menu and UI design that I think really helps give this game a unique identity for itself. Together with the art and the music, it's a style that works for the game, mostly due to how nice the animation looks for a lot of the beasties, although there are some exceptions. So I've kind of shied away from talking about what the game is missing and why the game itself is in early access, and that's because it is just not finished. Most of the parts that still need to be done are the art and animation. Quite a few of the beasties don't have full animation sets, some don't have animation at all, and some are still concept art. I've never seen a game do this before. I'm not even mad, I'm just kind of bewildered. When you go into a beast log, the game will actually tell you how far into development each beast is and how far away they are from being done, which I do like. I think this is a nice touch, but there's nothing more jarring than having your mostly animated beast evolve into a drawing. What an upgrade. As I progressed through the game, I found that the environment was becoming less and less finished. The environments, they are there. The rooms and environments just start to become empty slates, as well as some areas that seem like they're going to be used for something in the future. There's sometimes NPCs that'll say, hey, like, this will be something soon, just not now, which I think is fine for the most part. I found performance on this game is actually a little bit rough. Again, the later into the game I went, the more rough the game felt. I found I was getting more frame drops, especially in battles. This kind of would happen more in the city area more than anywhere else. But again, this is another zone that is unfinished, so optimization probably just isn't being done there yet. It's a little annoying to see, but it doesn't affect gameplay at all because, you know, it's turn-based RPG. It starts to affect the parts of the game that are more refined, and that's like the slick presentation and the menus. And when they're not moving at like, you know, 60 FPS, the game starts to feel a bit more jank. I have a 4070 Super, so I don't feel like I should be having any trouble running this game at all, but I think this does come down to the fact that the game just isn't quite finished yet. So in conclusion, would I recommend Beastie Ball? And I think I would, even with the early access quirks and all. When I review early access games, I don't like to put much stock on what the game could be in the future. I do like to theorize how the game could come together in the future and suggest what the developers should be working on and what to fix. But I will say that Beastie Ball has the most solid foundations of any early access game that I've played this year. And before you all start yelling Hades 2 at me in the comments, I haven't played the game yet, so it doesn't count. Look, it all comes down to having the gameplay in an extremely good state. And that's what Beastie Ball does, and that's how I think it should be. Gameplay first. The first few zones and a lot of the early beasties are clearly finished, so I have a clear vision of what the rest of the game is supposed to look like. And I know that the developers do too, because they've got a part of the game completely finished, so you know what they're aiming for. You know what the bar of quality is going to be. Now, it's always hard recommending an early access title because I believe that the game has to be worth what you're paying at the time of purchase and not what it could be in the future. On one hand, I am very happy with what I got to play, but on the other hand, if this studio shut down tomorrow and the game never got finished, I probably wouldn't be too happy about it. Look, that's the early access conundrum. I think if you're happy putting up with the later game weirdness of the unfinished beasties, then you should definitely give this game a try. It doesn't affect the gameplay whatsoever, but if you're someone who needs to keep that immersion, it might be best to wait. The game is currently retailing for around 35 Australian dollars, which is somewhere around $22 to $25 US. And in that, you get the full story mode, which will run you anywhere between 15 to 20 hours, depending on how much exploring and side content you do. But if you're a completionist that wants to fill out your entire beast index, then I could see this game running you well beyond 30 hours easily. Now, granted, the story does get a bit more rough towards the end of the game. I think that there are some story elements that haven't been implemented yet, and again, I feels like the dialogue needs to be sharpened up and worked on a bit more as the game goes on, because the quality does kind of start to drop a bit more. Even then, I've still found myself enjoying the game immensely, even as the jank started to become more present of the game. And look, this isn't something that I've ever done before, but I kind of felt guilty that I did get to play this game for free, so I decided to buy a copy of this game anyway, and then I gifted it to one of my friends who likes a good creature collector. So in the end, I actually did pay for a copy of this game. It wasn't mine. But hey, I really liked this game, and I hope the devs are able to keep working on this game because I think it's a real gem. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked the video, then please leave it a like, and if you are new to the channel, then please consider subscribing. If you have played Beastie Ball, then let me know what you thought of the game in the comments. Thank you so much to my YouTube members Controlled Killer, Yellow, and Melodia. If you think my content is worth supporting via a YouTube membership, the option is there. Perks are on the screen. I also have a community Discord, which is free to enter, as well as a Steam curator page. Links to everything in the description below if you wanted to check any of those things out. And if you have any ideas for future games that you want me to cover, then also, leave a comment. Let me know. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.